All right, let's do this. On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very special treat. She's a WWE legend, an unbelievable performer, stealing the show in every match she's been in. She's a champion in the ring as well as in life. She's a country singer, mother, and a badass entrepreneur. Just a juggernaut in all facets of life and a phenomenal human being. Please welcome the iconic Mickie James. How you doing, Mickie?
Wow, what an intro. Wow. I'm like,
I take great pride in those. Did I do you good?
oh, so good. Thank you. You were very kind to me. Thank you.
My pleasure. And like I was telling you before we went on air, I'm a diehard fan of yours. I've always been a diehard wrestling fan, and I've been able to kind of mix it up a little bit with what I'm doing now. So I know you've done these before. You have my absolute word. We'll keep it different, and we'll manufacture magic here today.
Oh, I can't wait. It's awesome. I'm excited. I love your energy. I was saying, and I went on and I watched a bunch of your stuff before we were coming up to do the interview. And I'm just like, God, his energy is so good. It's so powerful. It's through the roof. I love it.
Thank you so much. I know the audience is going to hear about the whole journey and all that. We'll get into that, but we're going to start off. We're going to have a little fun. I'm going to get a little weird. You ready for me?
Oh, okay.
Mickie, simply put, what is your superpower?
Oh, gosh. Authenticity, maybe?
Love that.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
Because that's the struggle. I think it's an artwork, to try to stay true to yourself and true to like who you are instead of molding and bending to what everybody. And that has been something, a learned habit. It's not something that I did overnight.
Same. And like society, wants you to be a certain way, and you kind of have to really find yourself along the journey. But when you do it, it's so liberating and free, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. Describe yourself in 3 words, Mickie.
Caring, passionate, and fiery, I guess.
Ooh, love that.
I can get a little I can get a little feisty,
I've seen it before.
Yeah.
What's something about you that's interesting that a lot of people might not know?
Ooh, I don't. Wow. I played the violin. I used to play the violin.
Okay.
I'm not very good at it anymore. I wish I could still play.
That's a cool instrument.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite instruments, and I played for like 5 years, and then I put it down because I thought I was being a super nerd, and so I didn't want to be a super nerd anymore. So I put it down, and now I wish I never had.
Listen, I'm a super nerd. I think all nerds are the best.
Deep down, we are all super nerds. That's 100%. The reality.
No, it's so true. I love that.
Yeah.
Mickie, what makes you feel most alive?
I think watching my son experience something for the first time, or like seeing like how excited he gets. That's the one thing I think of motherhood for me has like reopened my eyes to, everything has filters and we get jaded the more we go through life. It is like to reopen my eyes to be able to look at something again for the first time and truly experience it and all its magic, from the simplest things, from a bird flying to like, an airplane for the first time. And so all these like little things that we take it for advantage, and it just means so much to them because their energy and the way they look at things is so pure. It's just it's amazing to see because they don't have like this preconceived like notion of what it's supposed to be, so
it's so true. And I can relate to that because I have one sibling. It's my brother. He's my best friend in the world, and he has a little kid, my nephew. And I've been spending a lot of time with him lately. He's the cutest, and it's just like you said, like you could see his eyes open up, like it's so pure, so innocent. It really is the most special thing.
Yeah.
I love that.
I used to be able to experience that through my nieces, because my sister, I had my son later. He's 6. He's going on 7 this year. But my nieces, I had like my sister had my nieces all. So as I was on the road and experiencing life, I could see it through them. But it's different. Like it's cool and it's awesome, but it's different when it's your own child, right? Like because then you're kind of helping guide their way and trying not to mess it up.
Yeah. Well, I can't relate to that yet, but stay tuned.
One day. Yeah. Don't rush it. For God's sakes, don't rush it.
Yeah. I've been told that. I hear that.
Yeah. It's a full-time job.
I understand. I see my brother right now. What was your favorite, to you personally, in your heart of hearts, career moment inside the ring?
It was definitely my first WrestleMania match, WrestleMania 22, I think, because at that point, they always say, oh, there's nothing like your first one and the first time you win the championship. And I've had some incredible matches and been able to work with some of the best of all time, you know, like in my opinion.
Definitely.
But that moment for me was the culmination of the sleeping in my car, of not being able to afford gas, and all these, like, just the blood, the sweat, the tears, and all that sacrifice, and all those people who said you'll never make it, or what are you doing, or why don't you try something out, all these things, like, and then in that magical moment of like having that at WrestleMania, which is the biggest show ever for us, you know, it was truly, truly magical. And I say, like, if I could bottle up like that feeling, that emotion, well, if I could sell it, I would be a gajillionaire. But if I could give it away, like, oh, it was just, I can't even put words into what that feeling was like. And you can see it, like, if you ever go back and watch, not to just drive traffic back to a match from 15 years ago, but if you could, you can genuinely see some of those moments where that emotion is like really, because we feed off of the crowd too, and because
Sure.
their energy was so much behind it. And it's just like, it was like electric for me.
Yeah.
For me. Yeah.
And two things. Number one, it was very obvious. It was all over your face, the emotion, how real and raw that was at the time. And number two, here's the good news. One of the things that I teach is a concept called anchoring. So you put yourself back in that state, and like how exhilarating it was, and like hearing the pop of the crowd, and you know, like you finally got that opportunity to get the title on the grandest stage. You put yourself in that moment, and then you could bring yourself to the present, and your state is immediately elevated on a very deep level, because obviously you just anchored that state from the past. And then whatever you're about to step into, you can elevate your state for that activity. And as I'm sure you know, from an elevated state, there's something that you can't do.
Right. That's so brilliant how you said that. That's because even when I think back to that moment and people ask me, oh, what did that feel like? When I try to describe that feeling, it's not the same level. It's not the same like emotion that I'd felt, but I can still genuinely get chill bumps when I start to try to explain it, because it was like, it was so powerful. And I'd never like, it was like all encompassing, like this full body experience of like, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is the moment that I truly made it. Like that. That doesn't get better than this, you know?
Even just seeing you talk about it right now, it's very obvious. It's contagious.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you have that tool to anchor that whenever you see fit.
Well, thank you. I'm going to use that one.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get deep for a second. You ready?
Okay.
When did you officially become Mickie 2.0?
Oh, I think that there's been different stages of that Mickie 2.0, because it's like we're constantly evolving and growing. And I think that, you know, 20-year-old me compared to 25-year-old me, I feel like for me, it's these weird, like almost 5-year stages, except for this last year and a half has been like a massive growth experience on so many different levels. Like this past 2 years or year and a half or whatever it's been pretty like, I know it feels like 5 at this point,
Yes.
but it was a big growing experience, I think, for myself and for everybody, like my husband. I just think for everybody as a whole, because it just put everything in a whole different perspective of like what we truly value. But I just think that there's always these levels up, because you think, you know all these things at different stages, and then you realize that you have so much more to learn and so much more to do and so much more to grow. And then, you know, people have like, you have all these goals. And I always think like, once you've accomplished that goal, you have to keep having more goals. You can't stop there, because complacency is like, and boredom will be your destruction. You know, you have to keep like expecting more out of yourself. And so and maybe that's, I don't know if that's a good trait or a bad trait, to know that it's never enough and I can always do more and I can always do better, but it is what keeps me going and
I'm with you.
pushing. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like you just said, like, I'm not sure if it's a gift or a curse, but it keeps me always motivated and always reaching a little bit higher for that next step. And you know, like, it's funny, I've had some interesting conversations recently, and it's like, imagine you had a bow and arrow and like the target keeps going back. Like, I don't know if that's a good thing either. You know, we ought to be able to celebrate our wins and so forth. But I had the same mindset as you, of always reaching a little bit higher. It's always trying to grow and expand.
It is a blessing and a curse too, because it's like not that we don't truly like celebrate in those moments. You do, like, that is the art, is like, you have to give yourself that moment of like, yes, I made this, I did this, I accomplished this, but you can't just settle there. Like, okay, well, you were able to do that. Now now what more can you do? What else? I just love those challenges. But that is a good point, because we often do that, like in that sense of like, even when I go back and I watch a lot of my matches, when people go like, oh, that was a great match, I could nitpick every single one of them apart and tell you everything I thought was wrong with it, like easily, because that's just the perfectionist in me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. And also, I do a lot of homework because number one, I'm a huge fan. And number two, preparation breeds confidence. And I heard you say somewhere that like when someone says like you can't do something, like people usually have two choices. Like either they succumb to that, or then there's you where like you take that as a challenge and you go, watch me, right?
Right. Well, I think because, there's someone said to me, my friend Mel, she goes, and someone had said this to her and it just really resonated with me. It was like, people want to see you successful, but they just don't want to see you more successful than them. And it really like, I was like, wow. And not everybody. I just realized like, that's where I realized my circle is so big, but also my true circle, that like super hard circle with the iron around it, is like pretty small, in the sense of like, because I only want people in that space that want to rise up with me, or want me to rise up as much as I want them to rise up. Like I push all of that. And if you don't want that for me or for yourself, or if there's like some uneasiness about it, then, or uncomfortableness, I guess, is because people just, it's a jealousy thing and it's an ego thing, right? It's like you, I personally feel like you are as good as the people that are around you, right? Like you need to shoot for those. I want to be around people who are better than me, because that makes me want to keep climbing up to be at that level, rather than surrounding myself with people who aren't, because then I feel like, oh, I'm the top dog, and like this little, it's not the same feeling, right? It's just,
I couldn't agree more. It's so
yeah,
true. Like there's an expression, you never want to be the smartest in the room, so to speak. And
right,
I think that applies. Like you want people around you that motivate you. And also you said like your iron circle is very small and so is mine. And as like, and let me be clear, like I'm still on a journey, right? Life is not a destination, it's a journey. But as I continue to be even more authentic and aligned with my true purpose, like I've lost relationships, but I'm at peace with it because I'm growing and I want to be around people that are like-minded. Have
right.
you been through that as well, where you've kind of lost some relationships from the past?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's more about like small, like, and I don't know how to say it. It's like more like that small-minded mentality, or people who try to keep me in a box, like where, oh, I only want you to be at this level, not this level. And it's like, no, I can't be at this level because I don't know what this level looks like. I'm not comfortable here. Like I want to be here. And so if you don't want to be here with me, then we can't be friends, and it's like, I'm always cordial and kind. And I still want them to rise to there, but I can't allow them to anchor me down to that small-minded mentality. You know what I mean? Of like constantly going after this low-hanging fruit stuff when the tree is so tall and I want to stand at the top of it.
Yeah.
Like I want that big piece of apple that's way, way at the top that nobody can reach. Like I don't care how tall my ladder is.
I love it. And I know you're being serious because I watch your career and you think very
Yeah.
big.
Well, and I think that that's because here's the thing, like I honestly feel that like it's really hard. People who don't understand that mentality, it's uncomfortable for them to be around you because you're like pushing so hard and you're positive and you're shining so bright, that it's that whole light and dark thing, right? Like it's like they want to be at that level, but they don't know what that feels like, and it's uncomfortable for them, right? And so until they can like have that faith in themselves or in their dream or their passion or their purpose enough to go after it, they don't understand what it's like for someone to do that. And we try to drive them and lift them up, but it's also exhausting. It's exhausting to constantly like pull people to your level, so
Yeah.
you have to kind of, that's why I say I protect myself. Like
Yeah.
I'm ready for it when I do those things in public appearances and all these things. Like I'm totally ready for it. But when I have to come step back and decompress and get my space, I'm like real careful about who I let in my space, because that's when I'm probably most vulnerable, because I need to reset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. And it requires a lot of energy dealing with that. And also, like, I think the other people in your success, they see their own insecurities.
Right. Right. And it's a jealousy thing. And it's like, it is sad to see, because you only want like people to
Why?
do
Yeah.
be the best versions of themselves, and I want everybody to be as successful, if not more successful than me. And I want, you know what I mean, like, because I think that there's a beautiful set of relationships and you just never know, like you cross paths with so many different people, whether it's in this industry or other industries, constantly, consistently. So you just want everybody to kind of rise up, and it's like,
100%.
yeah.
I knew we were going to get deep, but this is great. Woo! This is fantastic. So I told you we're going to jump around a little bit, Mickie. You were born and grew up in Virginia, right?
I did, in Montpelier, Virginia. Yeah, I say Montpelier. Well, I always say I'm from Richmond because nobody knows where Montpelier, Virginia is. Like a little dot,
Barely on the map, right?
Yeah, right. Like I think my graduating class was like 200 people. I don't know. It was great though. I love it. I grew up in the country. I love the country. That's where I'm from. And I'm like, even now when we bought this place, we bought it like 35 minutes outside the city because it's 5 acres. I can have my horses. It's just like our little piece of like peace. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I love it.
So how did you come across wrestling?
Well, I watched it with my dad. Like that was like our bonding thing. And my parents separated when I was 2. And so both my sisters and I would just sit here and watch it when so I have a sister that we have the same mom and dad. And then I had a stepsister, Susan. So when we would come on the weekends. That was kind of like our thing. We would watch wrestling, and that was like a real bonding thing for us, that and church. Right. So, and we did that every weekend. We would go see my dad. But I really, really fell in love with it. And I think it was a form of like, not just the artistry of it, but that escapism in the sense of like, it was like the athleticism and these larger than life characters. And I honestly thought that they were like circus freak people, animals, like the bearded lady and stuff. I'm like, how do they find these people? Because in my mind, they were just so much larger than life. I mean,
yes,
I was just like, whoa, they're so cool. And they just were captivating, and they could be these characters that could say and do all these things that people kind of really wanted to say and do in real life, but just never had the courage to do, I think. So,
who were some of the people that you were watching at that time?
well, Macho Man was my all-time favorite.
The Macho Man.
Was my all-time
Loved
favorite.
him.
Sensational Sherry, obviously Ric Flair, which is so crazy.
Woo, right?
Now, woo! I know it's so crazy now because I've shared the locker room with Rick in different areas, and I just have so much love and respect and admiration for him. He's just like genuinely one of the kindest people ever on the planet, but just to the GOAT, right? Yeah. And you say, "Oh, you're the GOAT," and he's like, "Oh God, stop!" Like it's just like he's so humble and genuine and kind, and it's just like I don't know, but. And wrestling obviously was different then than it is now. It's evolved. It's like such a huge phenomenon now. Yeah. Right. And then I fell out of wrestling as life progresses, and I was in horse training, and I was showing and competing and playing the violin and just, school and boys or whatever else. And then I got out of high school, and then wrestling became super, super hot again. It was the Attitude Era, and it was like Stone Cold, The Rock, DX, that whole era
about it.
Reignited this. I'm fire. Like, and this is, 18-year-old me, fresh out of high school, little to no direction. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And I'm just like obsessed. I became absolutely obsessed, super fan. And a buddy of mine, I was working at a bar, and he's like, my friend has a wrestling school. And I'm in, outside of Richmond. So that was in DC, close to DC. So it was like an hour and a half. And I remember it was like November 1998. I drove up to the wrestling school. It was at the back of this like martial arts dojo. It wasn't even a wrestling ring. It was like a boxing ring. And that's what I learned to wrestle in. And I walked in, and I'm like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to try to do. And I signed up that day, and I never turned back. And yeah.
The rest is history.
Rest is history.
Yeah. And I want to ask you, I just want to touch on this for a second, because I know you publicly said often that when you were younger, you were abused. And I've had some people on here, that are helping break the stigma. So I wanted to ask you, like, just to even further that and help other people that might be going through that. Like, when did you start to open up and publicly speak about that?
Not until I was like 35.
Wow.
Like 33, 34. I think that's when I first I had spoke about it, obviously, in certain like private conversations, or if it was like something where I felt like I needed to have someone kind of understand my perspective. But even that, like, I wasn't comfortable saying that out loud until my 30s. And it's crazy to think, because that was from like my 9-year-old self to 16-year-old self, that all that, like, so then I think that I also say that I attribute a lot of my success and encompassing a character and being able to become this character, because I'd spent so much of my life pretending as a young adolescent like that everything's cool, I'm totally fine, whatever. But I really, really struggled from, self-doubt to, my body image, my self-worth, my self-value, all of those things. And it took a long time, and like pretending and faking it till you make it to get to that level to where it had to like really have this deep, from self-destruction to whatever else, to really sit back and have this deep understanding to go like, it's not your fault. You know what I mean? Like to say that out loud and to believe it, that was really, really hard. um and so that's why I understand, and I really like empathize with so many people, and I say, you cannot you can't understand like when is the right time for somebody else, because we all heal differently on different levels. And it's until that person as an individual is in a space to go like, I forgive myself, and whether they forgive the other person or not, like I had to get to that space where I had to forgive him and I had to forgive myself
Yeah,
for holding this resentment and this anger and this pain for so long and not talking about it. You know what I mean? And
I do.
not being okay with it,
Uh,
and it's
Yeah,
even now I get up, you know what I mean? It still hurts. It doesn't ever stop hurting. It's just how I deal with it mostly now is through a lot of the philanthropy stuff I do, with whether it's child help or like being able to talk about it, or if I can help somebody else, especially, we think about now in the pandemic when those child abuse cases are through the roof because everybody has been stuck at home with their abusers. And this is not just for children, it's for, you know, spousal abuse, whether male, female, like I believe on both sides of that, like all of that, like it's more like it's crazier than ever. And so we just have to be really, really conscious of that, and aware.
yeah. I appreciate you saying all this. And just to talk for a second about forgiveness, like forgiveness in essence helps facilitate some sort of closure. Like you said, like you'll never not hurt from those wounds. But
No,
by forgiving, it doesn't mean that like you want to be friends with the person. But for
right.
you, it's kind of like allowing the shackles to be dismembered so that you can kind of be liberated and move on, right?
100%, because out of anger and fear kind of like reside in that same space, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think I held quietly all this anger for so long, and it affected me. It affected my relationships with, within my personal relationships. It affected my friendships. And my ability to trust people in general, not just men, but just people, like I didn't trust, and I still to this day I struggle with like on the level of trust that I'm going to. That's why I say I keep my circle tight, because, and I've learned the true value of like that is an important thing for me, and some people can kind of embrace, and I do embrace, and I try to love everyone, but I'm also very protective because, and it's also as a mother, I'm even super protective of my son, because I'm like, I don't, well, trust anyone totally like that.
Yeah.
But it's hard, and it's hard to let go and to forgive and to say that forgiveness, but also to mean it. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think that I actually came to a space of forgiving him before I came to a space of saying I forgive myself. Like I truly was able to go like I forgive myself, not just for holding the resentment, but I just think that I blamed myself for so long,
Yeah.
and I blamed myself for all the bad decisions that I made after that, thereon after for a long time because of that. You know what I mean? Whereas now I can kind of look back at it and go like, I made a lot of those because I wasn't in a good space about, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
self-destructed myself. I sabotaged myself. I, chose bad relationships and stayed in bad relationships because that was my comfort, like I was comfort in being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't understand is like when you are abused like at a young age like that, like there's the incident and then there's the after effects that go
Right.
on for years and years and years. So
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that, Mickie.
No worries. Yeah. I hope it helps somebody, because
100%.
yeah.
And it will. We have a big audience, so trust
Yeah.
me, it will definitely help someone. So we're gonna jump around a little bit. I know that you were working on the independent scene and you auditioned for WWE a couple of times because you're relentless and persistent. I love that about you. And then eventually you got called up. What was that moment like for you?
It was incredible. It was incredible. And I would say I would try, and it's different now than it was, but I would drive like 18 hours to Florida, and I'm from Virginia, like working at the independents is the equivalent, I say, of being like an independent rock star. Like you're really not making any money. You're doing it because you love it and the passionate, like because you just want to make it and you learn. And I was blessed to be able to, when I would work a lot of those independent shows, I would always pull some of the veterans aside and be like, please watch my match. Tell me anything and everything that I could fix, do wrong, or whatever, because I'm constantly learning, because that was the space to do it. And then those tryouts, I would get told no and no and no and no. We're not interested. Not right now. Oh, you don't have the look that we're looking for. You know what I mean? Like all these things. And that was that fuel to my fire. I'm like, what do you mean no? Like I'm good. Like I think I'm pretty good. Like, what do you mean no? And I mean, I was still super green, but I just knew in my heart, I'm like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to show you that I'm going to make it. I'm not going to leave you alone until you hire me. I'm not going to stop knocking on your door until you answer it. Like, that's just it. So until I get good enough that you actually open the door, I'm not stopping. And I think either they finally realized that or they got tired of me calling them.
I love this. And like you have to surgically move the smile off my face in case the audience could see. Like you were so persistent, but also like I've heard you say in the past that you weren't as confident when you were younger, but here you were like saying to yourself, like, what do you mean no? Like I know I can hang with any of these other girls out there.
Yeah. Well, because at that, and you know, the wrestling business was so much different, especially for women then, because at the time when I was on the independent scene and I was trying to get a job, there was little to no female wrestling. And I say that, but like good female wrestling, you know, there was the occasional, like the promoter's girlfriend that was thrown on the card, or like the managers or a valet. But most of them was like, oh, the wrestler's girlfriend or this person. And they started wrestling and then they quit 3 months later or whatever. There was only a handful of like really great, talented female wrestlers that
performers.
were all right. So in my mind, I go like, I feel like I'm like right now, like one of the best of the best of like the options. So I couldn't, I'm like, what is happening? You know? So, and I just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. And out of that, like I got to be on one of the first TNA pay-per-views, you know, and I was in that battle royal, and I got on Ring of Honor. And it was honestly when I transferred schools to Maryland Championship Wrestling, because it's that constant leveling up, because I'd learned enough. I learned all I could learn at that school that I started with. I was there for like a year and a half, and I just kind of plateaued. And I'm like, I'm not going to grow if I don't leave here. Like I have to. And it hurt. And the school was very hurt that I left, but I'm like, but I'm not going to go. I want here. I don't want to wrestle in Stanton Armory for the rest of my life. Right. Like I want to be there, and I got to get there. And I knew I had to change my course, you know. And that whole, once I went to Maryland Championship Wrestling, my game changed. Like doors started to open, like I had to, you know, I started to get more jobs. I would drive to Jersey, I'd drive to New York, I'd drive to Boston, I'd drive anywhere and everywhere that would come and book me for $100 and maybe a corn dog. I was there, you know, like I was just hustling and hustling, and I got to be one of the best. And then finally, you know, I think I was about
this is unbelievable. I'm just like, I'm getting all like geeked up right now, just listening to your journey and just how big you think, and also how persistent. I really appreciate the audience is going to get so much out of this.
Oh yeah, no, it's just crazy, but it's different for everybody. And you know, it was like really frustrating sometimes, because you would see somebody who had never wrestled a day before in their life and they got hired, and you're like, how is this happening? I've been wrestling for 5 years and I'm like starving, and I working at the truck stop, you know, like trying to just be a weekend warrior, and all I want is to be there, and I know I'm better than that person, you know. Like it was a frustrating long journey. And it was finally, you know, when I finally debuted on television, and so I started in 98 training, first match 99 on the independent. So I worked all the way until 2002. I got my contract with WWE, and then I sat in developmental, which is like their minor leagues, for almost 3 years, and false debuted until finally I debuted in 2005. So that was that before I even made it to television. And, you know, and it's just like, whoa. So I'd put some work in, you know, for me at that point, you know, that's young baby me, not even realizing the journey ahead. I felt like I put some work in, and I'm so grateful it happened the way it did, because, you know, my storyline, you know, with the false starts and stuff, I could not have asked or prayed for, which I did pray. I'm a prayer for a better like entrance into WWE, and too, because it's truly you know, sometimes they say you can't see the forest from the trees because so heartbroken when those opportunities kept getting taken away from me. But I mean, it was really a blessing because it set the stage of the rest of my career. And I'm super fortunate and blessed for that. Like I can't.
So many nuggets and so many gems from this. And like for the audience, like rule number one, like if you have a vision and you know for certain that you're good enough, never surrender. Like don't give up. Like
Right.
that's obviously so valuable. And then just also like, so you debut it, and was it with Trish?
It was.
Yeah.
My
So
the first debut was like this weird, it was like with CM Punk and it was on Sunday Night Heat. And that was one of the things that got, so when I finally like truly debuted, and this was like after this, I asked Tommy Dreamer was the head of developmental at that time. And I was super struggling, like in the thing, like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I went back to school full time. I was doing school online, like signed up to do school online because I was like, I feel like everybody's getting maybe they just don't want me. They don't want wrestlers because it was the start of the diva search and all this. I was like, maybe it's just not my thing. Maybe they don't want me or whatever. I don't know what I'm doing. And he's the one who's like, go home and chill out, take a break, go see your mom, go see your dad, see your sisters. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Take a break, see your brother, like just take a break. And it was like really a reset for me because I went home and reset and I came up with this character, this story, like this idea for this character who was a massive super fan, which was genuinely in my heart, you know, not crazy, but well,
maybe a little.
We're all levels of crazy, but
100%.
But yeah, and I was able to come up and try to cultivate this character that I was like, this is, and I pitched it. And I remember walking into Vince's office with this idea and I'm like, I heard you read my idea and you liked it. And Michael Hayes, I have to say, Michael Hayes is the one who said, you need to walk in Vince's office. You need to tell him that you wrote that. You need to tell him that nobody can play it but you. And I'm like, oh God, like this is backstage, you know, I'm in like Columbus, Ohio, like from driving up from Louisville, which is the developmental territory, OVW at the time. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I could do this. The whole time I'm sitting outside of Vince's office, I'm like, I feel like I'm going to vomit. Like it was the scariest. If you've never met the man in person, like he has this aura about him. He's so powerful and so intimidating, but yet so genuine and real. Like he's always been kind and genuine to me. And I'm just like, I was terrified for my life. Anyway, I remember walking in there and it just like took everything I had. And I'm like, yeah, I was so unsure of myself and so my confidence. And I'm like, I feel like I'm confident, but not even in the same level of confidence as somebody that's, you know.
Yeah, this is Vince McMahon.
Yeah. Anyway, I was like, you know, I heard you read my storyline and that you really liked it. And I just want you to know that I created that character. I know that character inside and out. There's nobody that can play that character like me. And he just like looked at me. He's like, wow, you got guts.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that.
yeah, I was like, thanks. I was like, I didn't know what to say. I was like, okay, thank you. But I'd waited for hours to say this to him and I didn't even know how to follow it up. I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you so much. And I hope you consider it or whatever. And he's like, okay, have a great, you know, okay, we'll do. And thank you. And I'm like, oh, and I just left his office and I'm like, oh God. Like that was like, okay, I'm either going to get fired or whatever. And it was like a couple months later. And then they brought me up to TV and they're like, yeah, we want to roll with this idea. And
that's great.
Obviously the magic happened with the writers and with Trish and with everybody involved. But it was, crazy. But that is a testament to when you say that, like I think that you're always presented with these moments. And like, I probably would have never done that had Michael said, go do this thing. And it probably still would have happened. Maybe it would have happened. Maybe it wouldn't have happened. But you were presented with these tests sometimes. And it really is like, how bad do you want it? Like,
ooh,
you know, and it's
love
like,
that.
How bad, you know, like, are you willing to be humbled? Are you willing to and be embarrassed? Are you willing to be told no? Like all these things, because those like what's the worst? And I think about this too. I go like, what's the worst they could say? No. Right. Or they could say yes, but they could say no. Sure. But that's okay. Who hasn't been told no before, you know?
Yeah. This is unbelievable because I always say like the scariest thing in life to me isn't taking that scary shot or that moonshot of life. It's to leave the bat on the shoulder and not even take a swing. Like that I can't live with. And you had that exact moment where it was like, you know, yeah, they might say no, it might sting, but I'll learn from it. I'll grow, whatever the case would be. And also you're confident to know it's a phenomenal idea. The one
Right.
thing that you can't live with after the journey, the sleeping in the cars, the road trips, all that will be to not even take that shot.
No doubt. And I think that is the biggest, we all live in a lot of what ifs, and I try not to live in what ifs anymore, because I think that a lot of people, a lot of unhappiness comes from these moments of like where it goes like, I wonder what if would have happened if I had done this instead, or I'd said this instead. And in our hearts, when we're presented those opportunities, I think it comes to you and you go like, oh, maybe I should say this. And then you go, oh, I don't want to be judged for it. Or I don't want to, or I should do this. And you're like, oh, and you second guess yourself, but it's not what your heart is telling you. Your heart is telling you the truth. It's telling you what to do, but you just got to listen and trust it,
Right.
And yeah,
You big on your intuition?
I am huge on my intuition. That's not something that like, I think that I wish I'd listened to it a lot more, and I probably would have made a lot less mistakes, because I think that it's never lied to me. It's just only when I questioned it or second guessed it or tried to talk myself out of it. Like I just talked to myself all the reasons, or, what
100%.
could happen after the after effects, like all
Yeah.
those things. We can talk ourselves out of anything if you allow
100%.
it. Yeah.
That voice in your head doesn't go away, but we combat it with tools and techniques. We get a little bit stronger.
Right. Well, it's always that heart and mind balance, right? Like, so I go,
Yes.
they talk about the devil's on your shoulders or whatever. And I go, like, I feel like your heart is always telling you your truth and your mind is always trying to talk you out of it.
Yes.
Like, not that I am a cerebral person, but at the same time, I'm just like, I feel like I'm more heart led than mind led. And sometimes it's
Fight
not
the
always
fear.
a good thing,
Yeah.
That's how we get hurt. But also,
It's part of
sure.
life. It's part of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mickie, I know you said that like success is measured by different things, not necessarily money, but like driving towards something that you're very passionate about, or like your dream, so to speak. Like that's what's most important. That keeps you alive and motivated and gives your life purpose, right?
Right. Well, I think too, because I think we all want different things from our lives. And we look at like, we have different dreams, we have different aspirations, and we think we all come from different backgrounds. You know what I mean? So we all don't want the same things, or we don't look at it like that. And I've learned that I used to be like, oh God, I want the success. And it's obviously the money is great, and money can
Sure.
help buy nice things, and it'll help buy the things that make you happy. But ultimately, I've learned it's like, had money, I've lost money. Money comes and goes. You know what I mean? Like as the more money you make, the more bills you're gonna have. Like that's just the way it is. Like now I look at it as space. It's like I never look at it as about a money issue, as more of like, does this fulfill me? Like, does this make me happy? Does it bring me joy when I'm doing it? Because I think ultimately, like, we are supposed to be doing the things that we love, regardless of what that is. And the beautiful thing is that we all love different things. So then there's space for everybody. And
Yeah.
then the money just comes. Like it's just a
Right.
natural flow.
Yeah. And listen, it's a short trip. Like, not to sound too spiritual, but like we only get to do this once. Like we're only here for a certain amount of time. And you
Sure.
live like with a sense of urgency. And I love that. So here
Yeah.
you debut and you're in the limelight with Trish Stratus, who at the time was probably the biggest female wrestler in WWE. And
Oh,
also, just to educate the audience for a second, like Mickie keeps talking about like back then it was much different. Like today, they're more focused on like how you are as a performer in the ring, like athleticism and like telling a good story inside the ring. But back in the day when Mickie first started, it was challenging because they wanted more of like a look, and like the females were looked at more of like a gimmicky type of thing, right?
right. Well, absolutely. And I'm not the only one. I mean, Lita, Trish, Jazz, Molly Holly, like I was fortunate because I was a wrestling fan. So I actually gravitated toward those Scary Sherrys and the Loon of Ashans and all these, like I was obsessed with characters. Like I've always been obsessed with characters and the art of that. But you're right. I mean, Trish still is. I mean, she was just voted number one of like the greatest females of all time in like the top 50. And I was number 14. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm
That's got to be
kidding. No,
rigged. That's
it
not
was an
right.
amazing list. It was an incredible. I was happy to be on the list. I was happy to be up in that. I mean, like for me, I feel like, I don't know. I have people that I look up that were way higher on that list than, whatever. But at the same time, it really is a testament because it's been constantly like, breaking these grounds and breaking these barriers. And it was really our fans and this new generation of women too that have helped break down these barriers to say like, no, we're not eye candy anymore. We don't want to do bra and panty matches. We want real, you know what I mean? It's like, but it's been a long time to get there. And it's so amazing to see now, you know, but we really had to fight and tooth and nail and scratch and claw to get that time and to get those moments and to really make those moments. And I'm so grateful for the women who did it before me, who made people realize and understand that women are badasses and they can break, like nobody want, like, so yes, there is a space for that, like the bras and panties or whatever, if that's whatever, but women are incredible athletes and we're just as capable of headlining, of main eventing, of drawing money and drawing that same emotion as a men's match. And I think I was very fortunate that they gave us the time and gave us the investment, and not just that match, but also the whole storyline leading up to it. And
And
it was because everybody had to work together to make that. I mean, not
so
9
true.
months of like storyline for females was unheard of, you know, like it was crazy.
And now the girls are stealing the show, and you always did, but like now it's like they'll put them in the spotlight, like deservingly so, like WrestleMania, like the main event, whatever the case may be. But like, and also as a giant fan, I just got to say it was so special to see you in the Royal Rumble a year or two ago
Oh,
against Trish, and the
yes.
fans acknowledging that moment and like the nostalgia. It was so powerful and it was so special. I can only imagine what it was like for you two ladies.
Well, thank you. No, it was because I think, you know, because businesses move forward so fast and you think back and it's like, oh, a storyline was 15 years ago. Are people going to remember? Are they going to care? Because people don't look at women's wrestling the same as they look at the men's wrestling, in the sense of the legends that would have done a storyline like that, like would be like super celebrated to be able to come up and have this magical moment. Would it still have that same kind of emotion behind it? And I think the fact that the fans reacted, like it makes me, like it gets me emotional to think about it, because the fact that they reacted like that, like 15 years later, it just made it, like gave us that validation in the sense of like what we did truly meant something. You know, it's one thing when your peers say it and people go like, who have studied the business and who wanted to be in wrestling, because that's what you're a student of the game, that's what you do. But when the fans react like that, and like it just solidified like that fact that like what we did mattered, you know, like it
100%.
was important, and it really did, because we constantly question ourselves, you know, even still to this day. It's like, you know.
You ladies played a huge role in the development of women's wrestling where it is today. And you guys, like, you guys were the best. That generation, you, Trish, Lita, and even like Vicky Guerrero, she was the
Oh my God,
best.
yes. I love Vicky Guerrero. She's so funny. Oh,
I know.
and you think about her to come from a space of like, she was never in wrestling prior to Eddie passing on, and then she stepped into that role. Like obviously she was always around it and always in the family, and always, it was always a part of her life, but it wasn't something, and she was able to like step into that role completely like foreign to the wrestling ring, you know, like what anything within the ring space, and become like the top bad girl of the entire company. Like everyone hated Vicky Guerrero, you know?
And
It
for
was,
the audience listening, that's a good thing when you're a
that is
heel.
a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm a bad girl, I want you to hate me. It
Yeah.
brings me like, that means I'm doing my job. Like I don't want you to hate me, but then I'm going to tell you how much I love you on Twitter. Like, no, I am a bad girl. I don't want you to like me. That's when I know I'm doing my job, because now I know that you will really care when I'm beating up the person that you love. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. So after your debut, you had a hell of a run. So many championships, WrestleMania moments. Like for a little while, it seemed like you were an underdog, but no. Now looking back, like you were a dominant player in that era. And then obviously there was a hiatus,
Mm-hmm.
and you had a little bit of a dark patch during that time. Is that right?
I did. And well, you say that, I'm like, I was the underdog, but I always played that role. Like I liked playing the role of the
I
underdog,
know
you
you
know,
did.
like it's just a great story for me. I feel like there's always the story of the good guy versus the bad guy, and that, you know, what it's going to take for the person to overcome these adversities and all that. And so there's, to me, that's where I say like matches, like moves don't make money. Emotion makes money. Like emotion is where you,
Story. Yeah.
that's what people remember. They don't remember triple Indy moonsault, flippity doot. That they don't remember that stuff. Like they're like, oh, that's cool, but what they do remember is how you make them feel. Like that's
Sure.
how those powerful movies, like the Oscars and stuff, is because, oh God, I've like, it was a feeling, right? So
And that's what probably made you fall in love with wrestling and myself, because the emotion that it brings out of you,
Right.
the
One
storytelling.
100%. Yeah, I love it. I love it. But obviously I did. I left of it, and I was going through that dark spot that I touched on earlier, because I was like in my early 30s, and I found it was like uh my abuser, my ex-step grandfather, like he was in prison, but he passed away in prison. And I felt like this resurgence of all here I am at the top of the mountain. I've achieved like everything that I thought like I wanted, everything that I thought I wanted. And all of a sudden, like with this news, it like just kind of like ripped open this whole thing that I'd been trying to
The
escape.
trigger.
It was a huge trigger, and it was a huge like spiral for me, because it like ripped open this whole space of like, I thought I was over this. I thought I was stronger than this. I proved to everybody that I was bigger than this and better than this. What is happening? Like I just started to, and in that, like it started to relive a lot of those emotions. And I realized that, and it took a space. I mean, that was like a 2-year downward spiral that I probably took myself down. And I remember I was just like, that's where I get to a space of going like, I don't like myself. I don't love myself. Like I've been, you know, I never forgave myself. I never forgave him. I'm just like, I still had all this hate in my heart, and I just really had to find a way to heal and let it go, because I thought I had healed through all this other stuff, but I just kind of had like buried it, and just
That's
and
heavy.
went and proved
Yeah.
all these other things so I could, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pretend like I could prove that I wasn't that weak little girl that was vulnerable and could be hurt. You know what I mean? Like I was so much stronger than that, but I wasn't, you know? The little girl inside me was still very hurt.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
And you carry that stuff around. Like sometimes it goes away, but if you don't really make peace with the situation, like you did now, like with the forgiveness stuff, it'll rear its ugly head, and it's very heavy.
it is. It is. And when you can live your like a long time and like just kind of like a tortured soul, or like in a tortured space, you know, because you're constantly like not, you're feeling this like something's not right, but you just won't address it, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. So then you get back to WWE as your, I would think your best self, like your best
Oh,
version of you.
thank you.
And what was that like? Now you're back, and like obviously the business has changed. Like you see all these girls doing some crazy stuff. They're getting their deserved time and so forth.
Yeah.
And then you came in, like, what was your motivation for that second act, so to speak, with WWE?
Well, you know, I was in a space because that's, you know, out of that, like I'd started working on my music, and my music was successful. I'd got signed with a record label, and then I kind of stepped away from wrestling for a minute because I went to the other company. I was very successful there, and I was able to rebrand myself and still stay in the public eye, and almost like never lose my value. Because that's often like once you leave the company, a lot of people just kind of disappear, or their value kind of decreases in a sense of like, but I was still able to like maintain my worth and my value, and almost become like a better version of myself away from there. So when I came back to WWE, I was in just a whole different headspace, because I was a mother now. I had gone through this whole healing journey that like was a huge thing for me, and I just felt more powerful, you know, than I'd ever done, in a sense of like my confidence. And
Right.
granted, like I have not, you know, I didn't win a championship since I come back or anything like that, but I feel like to be able to be in the locker room and to provide like this sort of like,
Guidance.
not like a mentorship or like a thing, or because I remember being a lot of these girls that were so hungry and so like, not that I'm still driven, you know, it's
There
just like,
you are.
but driven in that sense of like champion, 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 where to me it's not really about the championship anymore. It's about like, okay, next generation, how can we take it to the another? Like, because
Giving
this
back.
bar, even though we're blasting through glass ceilings, there's still more glass ceilings that we could break down. It's like, how can we do that, and how can we do it together? You know,
I
like
love your drive. Like it doesn't go away. This is who
you
you are for
can't,
life. No,
you
I
can't.
know. I know. And it's so true. Like what you just said, like you had all the championships, the WrestleMania moments stuff. So now for this second act, maybe you give back a little bit because you were that younger girl once upon a time. So for the newer wrestlers in there, give them a little bit of mentorship, guidance, some of your experience and wisdom. And like you were reaching like at the indie shows before you even got called up to WWE, like you would pull people aside. Can you just watch my match? Just give me a tip. Now, like you're that for some of the younger girls. It's really special.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's still weird and like humbling in a sense when you if someone was to ask, like I if someone asks me for my opinion, I always give them my honest opinion. You know what I mean? And so, but if they don't, I've learned like if they don't ask me because there's this balance, right? So if they don't ask me, I don't bother, right? Because I don't want to waste my time or my energy or my words on something that isn't as important to me, or as it isn't as important to them as it is to me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So because I feel like I would rather save it for somebody who truly wants it, you know. But
Understand.
it's just crazy. It's a crazy space, you know.
It
It's
is.
like it is. I've been very fortunate. I've gotten to work beside Alexa, and I've been able to get in the ring with you. That was kind of a fun thing altogether, because it's like that was a different character to come back and like just be at different levels and to work with some of the girls. And I love them so much, and they're so driven and funny and talented. And I just think that like it just puts a different, because I'm able to look at it with different glasses on, you know.
Understood. Different
Right.
perspective. What did you think of WrestleMania this past weekend?
Incredible. Incredible. And that's crazy because I was like almost, I didn't know if I was going to be there or not. And then it was, you know, because everything's so different. And for the first time, like 2 nights, and I was like, whoa, this is going to be different for 2 nights. And then the weather was not being forgiven. It did not like it, like, because it was outside in the stadium, but the matches were incredible. Like I thought the females, I'm always all about like, because for me, it's been such a to change. They always say, leave the business better than you found it. And to continue to make those changes and to see these matches that these girls had this weekend.
Yeah,
Just
unbelievable.
mind blowing. Like to be able to main event. I mean, both championships switch titles, and then the girls tag team, like Natty and Serona, who were able to wrestle on both both shows back to back. Insane. And to finally see, like, for me to watch Tamina get that love from the crowd, like you think about it, I just hadn't realized it's like 11 years she's been there, and she never even had a win at a WrestleMania,
Really?
like for the first time ever. And it's just like, whoa. And the people were so behind her and just wanted to see that moment for her and for Natty. And just, I love it. I love to see the respect for the business and the genuine respect for females in the business now, like on
Understood.
a real professional worker level, you know,
Yeah,
like, because we've always wanted to be looked at not just good for a girl, but just damn good, you know,
100%.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
The girls are crushing it right now.
no
It's
doubt.
it's so much fun to watch. And like you said, you guys are just getting warmed up. There's so many more glass ceilings to break. I have to ask you, who's the best? Nothing like personal, nothing about the personality, but who's the best performer you've ever been in the ring with?
Oh God,
You've been in with some legends.
I really have. I really have. And that's a really unfair question. Because I think that
Top
the
three.
the top three for me would obviously be Trish. Oh God, it's not even fair, because here's the thing is that with each opponent comes a different story and a different sort of magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trish, Lita, Beth Phoenix, God, Victoria, and Gail are my top five, probably.
Good. Okay.
Those are my top five, you know.
Yeah.
And not the match with Gail and I from WWE where we got like 10 minutes cut to 2 minutes, but the matches we were able to have to
Yeah.
make up for that after later.
Who's a young performer right now that you have your eye on that's really doing some special stuff?
That's on TV right now,
Yeah.
or that's coming up? Oh, that's
Both.
not been seen
Both.
yet. Oh gosh. So before she made her debut, I would have said Rhea Ripley, because
She's on
when I
fire.
was watching her in NXT, I'm like, this girl's a star. Like, this girl's a star. So I think upcoming now that's on NXT, I think Shotzi. Shotzi's got it. She checks all the boxes, and she's got this fire. And, you know, I just really, I dig her. Like, I'm a character person, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's just me. On TV, oh God, it's a toss up. I always say that for me, Bailey is everything. Like, it's so hard because Sasha is so good, and Charlotte's so good, and Becky's so good. They're all freaking good. And that's just the difference of like how far the business has come for females, because it used to be there was only like one or two that were really great. And there was like, you know what I mean? It's like every single girl can go out there and kill it and
So
can
true.
wrestle. Yeah. And can more than just like can perform.
There's no
and
weak link. So
yeah,
true.
there's no weak links. That's just it. There really aren't.
Yeah. Mickie, I want to give your country singing the respect it deserves. I know for a while you didn't want to get involved. It was something that triggered you from an early age, and you didn't kind of put it out there. And also on the road, like you would travel alone a lot, and you put your thoughts down in a journal. When did you really say, I'm going to make a run at this and explore this part of my heart?
I think it was around I think 2008-ish. So I'd been on the road. I think I just finished like my online college degree, and I'd been champion, but on the road is like this roller coaster, right? Like sometimes you're the champion, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're at the top of the Ferris wheel, sometimes you're not. And I was just really struggling with my ego. I was really struggling with, it was about me, or it's about this. And that's just a very young-minded way to think about things. But it's really hard because you're so passionate and you love it so much. So the more like I would go into those spaces, and obviously this is coming up right around the same time of like that, I don't know if we call it self-destructive path that I kind of went on for a minute, but I just started journaling a lot and writing, like you said. And it just kind of triggered that moment of like, I was singing all the time. And I was like, the reason why I didn't go after singing or do any of that is because somebody else told me that I couldn't do it. Not because I felt, and I believed it, like they told me I wasn't any good, and I believed them, and it was like, I've gone after, and even still at that moment, I'm like, God, I still kind of, I don't know, but I really love these songs that I wrote, and I really want to so I was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this collection of songs.
Hell
I'm going
yeah.
to go to Nashville, and I'm going to record them. And I don't care if they sit at my mom's coffee table and their coaster, I'm going to do it. Like, because if nothing else, it's because, so I can say I did it, and not sit back and go like, well, what if I had, what if I had tried, like that's the worst to me. That's the worst feeling in the world. I hate that feeling of, I wish I had, or what if I had, I would rather just know.
You'd rather take a swing and strike out than just not even take a swing.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if it's FOMO or uncertainty. Like, I feel like the biggest fear for me is uncertainty of not knowing. It's like, I would rather know. I would rather know that it's not possible, but even then I'm not going to believe it,
Where can the audience find your music?
iTunes, Amazon Music, pretty much anywhere you can download. iHeart Music. I have a Spotify station. Anywhere you can download or listen to music, you could pretty much find it. And I have a new song coming out soon that I just put down, so it's coming out towards the end of the month.
Tell us more.
Oh, I'm so excited. So this whole pandemic, I've been writing so much. So that's my next album is just going to be all original stuff that I wrote on. And because a lot of times when you cut albums,
look how excited you're getting right now.
I'm so excited. We've been working really, really hard on it. And it's just like, we sit back, everybody's been kind of stuck to themselves. And I'm like, I got to do something. I got to stay productive. And I've just been writing. And I hopefully come up with some really cool material. But yeah, this Chapel Heart band out of Mississippi, they're already knocking down doors as far as the next women to watch. And I went out and did their music video for You Can Have 'Em Jolene, which is their single right now. And we got together and we wrote the Grown Ass Woman song. Relates to the company that I own, so, and I'm co-host of. And so, but yeah, they are badasses. Like they're so insane, breaking down barriers and breaking
You're
down.
a badass.
We're all badass.
This is great. I can't. When does the song drop? Later this month?
Later this month. And so like, I'm trying to get all the, because obviously I was just out in WrestleMania, and then I got stuff, 10,000 moving parts, as you know, as a hustler. But yeah, I'm super stoked. So it's coming out the end of the month. And it's going to be a female empowerment like anthem.
Love it.
I'm so excited. So yeah. And then we got to go shoot the music video soon and get that done. And then
all the things.
Yeah. All the things. Yeah.
I love it. We'll leave the audience with this because I'm genuinely curious. I know they're going to be. You've been through so much. Your journey is unbelievable. So many highs, obviously lows. That's what makes life, so special. What do you think the most important character trait to push through adversity is?
Oh God. Belief in yourself, I think. Ooh. I think you have to believe in yourself. Like, and that's that getting up and that for me is like getting up in the morning and looking myself in the mirror and saying, I love you and you're effing awesome and you can do this. Like that, it's like you have to put yourself in check because the world will tell you otherwise all day if you let them.
100%. Love it so much. Love you. I know the audience, in case they didn't know you. Thank you.
You're awesome. This was so fun.
Yeah, I told you make it different. Where
Yeah.
can the audience follow you? Where do you hang out the most besides the obvious?
Home. MickieJames.com. You can go there. You can go if you want to watch my wrestling stuff, it's WWE.com, and you can find my profile there. But MickieJames.com, at Mickie James, at the Mickie James, has the blue check mark. That's how you'll know it's me. Yeah.
Verified.
Yeah.
Yes. And the best is yet to come, right?
Totally. Always.
The audience, you love this, hit up Mickie. She'll be very friendly. Slide into her DMs, tell that you love the conversation, and say hello.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not the DMs part.
There could be some creeps. No, you're right. And Mickie, I have to tell you, I just wanted to let you know, you don't shy away from your challenges. They've shaped you. It's something I personally find so relatable and liberating. You are the definition of perseverance, great heart, from following your passion, becoming a WWE champion several times over. You've been in the trenches. You've come out and thrived. Now finding your voice as an extremely talented country singer. Most importantly, you've evolved as Mickie, the human being, and an outstanding mother. I could personally guarantee your best is yet to come. You're someone I admire, I appreciate, I have a ton of respect for, and I love very much. I can't wait to continue to watch you fly, and you have my word. This will absolutely not be the last time that you and I collaborate.
Oh, correct. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Hi.
Thank you, Mickie.
No, this was so awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you for letting me come on. This is fun. Anytime you want, I'll come back.
That was too much fun. Thank you so much, Mickie.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.